In an outdoor storage yard, a forklift repositions large, vertically stored slabs. A worker on foot adjusts materials in the immediate vicinity. As the machine operates, one of the heavy slabs becomes unstable and unexpectedly shifts. This moment underscores the importance of maintaining a safe perimeter around moving loads and ensuring materials are properly secured before and during transport. This aerial view shows a waste collection truck during a routine emptying procedure with a large dumpster. As the automated lifting arm moves the container, an individual is positioned in the narrow space between the container and the truck. The movement leads to an extremely hazardous situation. It is a critical reminder that a clear zone must be established and verified around all heavy machinery before any operation begins. Within a modern factory, an automated robotic system performs its programmed tasks inside a safety enclosure. A worker enters the active work area while the machine is still in its operational cycle. An unexpected situation occurs as the worker's position conflicts with the robot's movement path. Safety protocols, such as lockout, tag-out procedures, are designed to prevent such events by ensuring machinery is fully de-energized before human entry. In this storage facility, workers are positioned at the base of a very tall stack of heavy sacks. Without warning, the stacked goods become unstable, and the entire structure gives way. This incident highlights the inherent risks of improper stacking. Following guidelines for stack height, weight distribution, and interlocking patterns is fundamental to maintaining a safe warehouse environment. Inside a wood processing plant, a forklift transports a tall stack of unsecured panels. As the vehicle navigates a turn, the load center of gravity shifts, causing it to become severely unbalanced. The entire stack of material is displaced onto the factory floor near another workstation. Securing loads with strapping or wrapping, especially when they are tall, is a vital step in preventing material handling incidents. On an automotive factory floor, workers perform tasks near a robotic assembly line. One technician steps inside the designated safety perimeter to make an adjustment while the system is active. The large robotic arm continues its sequence, moving a vehicle frame into the space now occupied by the worker. This scenario demonstrates the critical function of safety interlocks and the rule to never enter a robot's work envelope during operation. A worker is performing maintenance on a large industrial press. While they are positioned directly in the machine's path of operation, an unexpected mechanical issue occurs. The heavy upper component of the press begins to move downward. This is a powerful illustration of why lockout-tagout procedures are essential. All potential energy sources must be completely isolated and verified before any service work begins. Inside a material processing facility, a worker manages heavy stone slabs positioned near a cutting machine. Suddenly, a large slab becomes unstable and tips forward due to a shift in weight, creating a hazardous situation for the operator in the fall zone. This incident highlights the critical need to secure heavy loads during processing and reminds us to never stand in the direct line of fire where unstable materials might fall. In a chemical processing plant, workers are inspecting a large industrial tank when an apparent valve failure causes a sudden, rapid release of pressure. The resulting release of energy disrupts the immediate area, serving as a stark reminder that pressure vessels require rigorous maintenance. Workers must always verify pressure levels and follow strict lockout procedures before approaching such equipment. An auto mechanic is working near an open service pit while a vehicle is being positioned nearby. The driver appears to lose control, possibly confusing the pedals, causing the car to accelerate suddenly into the pit area. To prevent such accidents, clear communication between drivers and ground guides is vital. and physical barriers should be used around open pits during vehicle maneuvering. A group of workers moves a tall metal scaffold structure across a paved area without noticing the overhead environment. As they push the frame, the top makes contact with high-voltage power lines, sending an electrical current down to the workers. This scenario emphasizes the importance of surveying the area for overhead hazards and maintaining a safe distance from power lines at all times. A vehicle is being loaded onto a flatbed tow truck when the securing mechanism fails, causing the car to roll rapidly backward off the ramp toward the operator. This mechanical failure illustrates why operators should never stand directly behind or below a load being winched. Regular equipment checks on cables and winches are essential to prevent failure during recovery operations. At a construction site, a crane lifts a bundle of heavy metal beams when the rigging suddenly slips. The load detaches mid-air and falls to the ground near the workers. This incident underscores that proper rigging techniques and load balancing are essential for crane safety. And establishing a clear exclusion zone underneath lifted loads is mandatory to protect personnel. In a busy commercial kitchen, staff transport a large, open container of hot liquid when one worker loses their footing. The container tips over, spilling the high-temperature contents onto the floor and the personnel. To minimize thermal risks, slip-resistant footwear is crucial, and carts with sealed lids should always be used when transporting hot substances. At a metal recycling yard, a worker introduces an ignition source near a sealed metal drum. Residual fumes inside the container ignite instantly, causing a rapid expansion of gas and a concussive blast. This serves as a critical warning never to apply heat or open flames to sealed drums without verifying they are completely empty and purged of hazardous residues. A driver prepares to unload a truck filled with heavy timber logs, but as the side restraints are released, the load shifts due to gravity. One of the heavy timbers falls outward, striking the individual standing next to the truck. When releasing cargo straps, workers must always assume the load has shifted and stand clear or use remote release mechanisms to avoid the fall path. A machinist working with a long metal bar on a rotating lathe gets their loose clothing caught on the spinning material. Although they pull away just in time, this near miss demonstrates that loose clothing, gloves, and jewelry are major hazards near rotating machinery. Wearing proper fitted work attire is a primary defense against entanglement. A large semi-truck reverses into a loading dock bay, while a worker stands in the driver's blind spot. Unable to see the ground personnel, the driver continues reversing, pinning the worker against the platform. Because loading docks are high-risk zones, drivers must strictly follow spotter signals, and pedestrians should never position themselves between a reversing vehicle and a fixed object. On a building's upper level, a worker in a red shirt walks dangerously close to an unprotected edge. There are no guardrails or safety lines in place. In a moment of distraction, he takes a step back without looking, misjudging his position, and plummets to the ground. This tragic fall highlights why fall protection is non-negotiable when working at heights. Any open edge requires guardrails or the mandatory use of personal fall arrest systems. Engineering controls are far more reliable than relying on situational awareness alone. At another construction site, a worker standing on a concrete ledge attempts to cross a gap using a single, unsecured wooden plank as a bridge. The instant he transfers his weight onto the plank, it flips and gives way beneath him, causing him to fall. This incident is a stark reminder of the dangers of using makeshift walkways. All temporary platforms must be properly engineered, secured at both ends, and load-rated to prevent catastrophic failure. In a large industrial yard, a forklift operator moves a large bin that completely obstructs his forward view. Meanwhile, two workers walk through the active vehicle area. seemingly oblivious to the moving machinery. As the forklift makes a wide turn, the operator, blind to the pedestrian directly in his path, strikes the man and runs him over. His colleague can only watch in horror. This devastating incident reveals multiple critical safety failures. Operators must never travel with a load that obstructs their view. If unavoidable, they must travel in reverse or use a spotter. Furthermore, dedicated, clearly marked pedestrian walkways must be established to segregate people from heavy machinery. From a scooter's point of view, we see the rider following a large cement mixer on a narrow road bordered by a rock face. The rider makes the dangerous decision to overtake on the right shoulder, where there is no lane. The space rapidly narrows, leading to a direct collision with the rock wall. This illustrates a vital traffic safety rule. Never overtake a large vehicle on the right, especially in a non-designated lane due to massive blind spots. A female worker in a red safety vest stands near a large industrial mixing machine, placing her hand on it. Without warning, the machine begins to move forward. She's instantly knocked off her feet and pulled underneath the heavy equipment. The primary failure here is a lack of a proper lockout-tagout procedure. Before any maintenance or interaction in the immediate vicinity of such machinery, it must be de-energized and locked out to prevent unexpected startup. Inside a textile factory, a man is operating a large warping machine with a massive rotating beam. As he works near the intake, his clothing gets caught by the powerful roller. He is instantly pulled off his feet and violently spun around as he's dragged into the machinery. His co-workers rush to stop the machine, but the incident has already occurred. This horrific accident underscores the danger of wearing loose clothing around rotating equipment. Furthermore, machines of this type must have emergency stops within easy reach and proper guarding to prevent any possibility of contact with moving parts. In a steel warehouse, a worker stands directly underneath a massive coil of sheet metal being moved by an overhead crane. Suddenly, the clamp holding the multi-ton roll fails, and the coil drops, instantly crushing the man below. This is an absolute violation of the most basic overhead lifting rule. Never, under any circumstances, position yourself under a suspended load. Safe zones must be clearly established and enforced. In a warehouse, several workers are taking a break on the floor. Nearby, a forklift operator uses straps to lift a heavy, stacked pallet. As the load is raised, it begins to swing unpredictably, and its movement leads to a loss of control. Establishing designated safe zones for breaks away from moving equipment and ensuring proper rigging techniques are used can prevent such dangerous situations. At an outdoor repair site, an individual works underneath the raised bed of a dump truck, which is supported only by its hydraulic system. Suddenly, the hydraulic pressure is lost, and the structure gives way, lowering rapidly. Never work under a load supported solely by hydraulic or pneumatic pressure. Always use certified mechanical supports or locking bars to secure the equipment physically. 2 sanitation employees work at the rear of their stationary vehicle. A small truck in the adjacent lane begins to reverse without a clear view of the area directly behind it. The reversing vehicle makes contact with one of the workers. This emphasizes the need for high visibility vests and the importance for all drivers to be aware of their blind spots, especially in areas with pedestrians. In a narrow industrial driveway, a worker stands directly in the blind spot behind a large truck. As the truck starts reversing, the movement leads to a loss of balance for the person behind it. This is a near miss that reinforces a key safety principle. Always make positive visual contact with an equipment operator before entering their path of travel. At a shipping container terminal, a pedestrian walks across the active yard. Simultaneously, the operator of a large forklift begins to execute a turn. The vehicle's path intersects with the pedestrian, leading to an unexpected event. Using designated pedestrian walkways and being aware of the large blind spots around heavy machinery are crucial for safety in such environments. Inside a large industrial facility, a worker attempts to clear a material jam from a powerful roller machine while it is still operating. The moving material suddenly pulls the worker toward the rollers, creating a severe entanglement situation. This lengthy incident is a stark reminder that machinery must be completely stopped and de-energized using lockout-tagout procedures before any attempt is made to clear a jam or perform maintenance. A truck loaded with loose, heavy produce is parked on a narrow, sloped street. The structural integrity of the truck's side gate fails, causing the entire load to suddenly spill out and roll down the alley where people are walking. Regular vehicle maintenance and pre-trip inspections to confirm that all doors, gates, and latches are secure are essential for preventing cargo spills. In a metal foundry, workers are managing material in a large industrial vessel. An uncontrolled element is introduced, triggering a sudden and powerful thermal reaction. A large volume of superheated material is ejected from the container. Working with molten materials requires strict process control and specialized personal protective equipment to mitigate the risks of such unexpected events. At an excavation site, several workers are standing perilously close to the edge of a deep pit while an excavator works above them. The operator swings the bucket, either misjudging the distance or not seeing the worker below, and knocks one man directly into the excavation. This highlights a severe lack of communication and sight control. Workers on foot should never be in the swing radius of heavy equipment, and operators must ensure their path is clear before moving. In a heavy manufacturing plant, workers are gathered around a massive engine assembly being lifted by an overhead crane. The rigging suddenly gives way, and the entire multi-ton apparatus crashes to the floor, shattering on impact and narrowly missing several people. The incident was caused by a catastrophic rigging failure. All lifting equipment, including slings and shackles, must be inspected before each use and rated for a weight far exceeding the load. A crane operator lowers a large bundle of sacks into an open pit in a factory floor. A female worker stands on the edge to guide the load. As the heavy bundle swings, its momentum pushes her off balance, and she falls backward into the hole. Workers should never use their bodies to directly guide a suspended load. Taglines should always be used to control the load from a safe distance, away from fall hazards. Two technicians are working on a large CNC machine. As one of them leans in and touches a component, he receives a severe electrical shock, causing him to convulse and collapse. This points to either damaged wiring or a failure to properly de-energize and lock out the machine before beginning service work. Inside what appears to be a paper recycling facility, a worker is manually pushing material into the opening of a large industrial pulper. He leans too far over the unguarded opening, loses his footing, and is instantly pulled into the powerful machine. A large plume of dust and steam erupts from the machine. This tragedy was entirely preventable. The machine's feed opening must have been equipped with proper guarding and a feed system, like a conveyor belt, to eliminate the need for any worker to be near the point of operation. A worker wearing a hard hat walks backward into the path of a reversing cement mixer truck. The driver, likely unable to see him in the blind spot, continues to back up, striking the man and knocking him to the ground. All large vehicles must be equipped with backup alarms, and drivers should use a spotter when reversing in areas with pedestrian traffic. Pedestrians, in turn, must remain aware of their surroundings. A worker enters the safety enclosure of a large industrial robotic arm while it is still operational. The robot activates, moving swiftly along its programmed path, and pins the man against a stationary part of the cell. Safety interlocks on gates are designed to prevent this. They must never be bypassed. In a garage, two mechanics are working on a large, inflated truck tire that is not in a safety cage. The tire suddenly explodes with catastrophic force, throwing both men across the workshop. Inflating large tires must always be done within a reinforced safety cage to contain the explosive energy in case of a blowout. A worker stands next to a flatbed trailer heavily loaded with stacked steel I-beams. The load, which is not properly secured, suddenly shifts and slides off the side of the trailer, burying the man underneath. All heavy loads must be secured with appropriate chains or straps to prevent any movement during transport or unloading. A sanitation worker sweeps a narrow street while a car attempts to park nearby. The driver loses control of the vehicle, surging backward and striking the worker. Situational awareness is critical for street workers, and while high-visibility clothing helps, physical barriers or cones are often necessary to create a safe buffer zone from unpredictable traffic. A worker opens the rear doors of a transport truck, carrying loose pipes that have shifted against the latch. As the door opens, a heavy pipe tumbles out unexpectedly, striking the worker. To prevent these avalanche scenarios, loads that can roll must be secured independently of the doors, and workers should always open doors cautiously from a safe position. In a textile factory, a worker gets too close to the intake rollers of a large winding machine. The machinery catches their clothing, pulling them into the mechanism. This incident highlights that machine guarding is essential to prevent contact with nip points, and workers must be trained to keep a safe distance from intake zones while ensuring emergency stops are accessible. An operator feeding material into a hydraulic press places a hand inside the danger zone to make an adjustment. The machine cycles unexpectedly, clamping down on the hand. Safety sensors must never be bypassed, and systems like two-hand controls or light curtains are vital to ensure the operator's hands are completely clear before the machine applies pressure. A worker stands near a large rotating industrial drum when a piece of material they are holding gets caught in the spinner. The immense rotational force pulls the worker into the machinery. Workers must respect the kinetic energy of large rotating machines. Never hold material being fed into a spinner, and ensure automatic shutoff systems are active. A forklift moves through a warehouse aisle and, due to a blind spot, strikes a pedestrian walking nearby. Segregating pedestrian and forklift traffic is the most effective safety measure in these environments. Where paths must cross, eye contact between the driver and pedestrian must be established before anyone moves to prevent collisions. An overhead crane moving a massive roll of paper suffers a structural failure in the hoist mechanism. The heavy load detaches and falls to the factory floor. This failure reminds us that regular inspections of hoist brakes and cables are mandatory. And more importantly, no one should ever walk or work under a suspended load, regardless of how secure it appears. A worker uses their foot to manually adjust a paper roll on a high-speed winder, but the friction catches their leg, pulling them into the machine. This severe entrapment scenario reinforces the rule that feet or hands should never be used to align materials on moving equipment. Proper tools and automated systems must be used to keep limbs away from intake zones. In a tight warehouse yard, a pedestrian walks behind a reversing truck, assuming the driver is aware of their presence. The truck continues backward, resulting in an impact. While backup alarms are helpful, pedestrians must assume they are invisible to truck drivers and stay completely clear of reversing paths to ensure their safety.